Boy cried to a Hell's Angel, "Please don't let them take my sister." What happened next went viral when a trembling 10-year-old boy grabbed Reaper's leather vest and cried, "Please don't let them take my sister." The entire grocery store froze, and what the Hells Angels did next shocked the world. Loudspeaker before the story continues. Backhand Index Boing Right subscribe to Biker's Hype for more emotional biker stories Backhand Index Boing Right like, and share this video with friends Backhand Index Boing Right. If you love the Hells Angels, share this video and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Prove your love. The cry in the parking lot rain hammered the city like 1,000 tiny fists as night settled over Westwood. Street lamps flickered. Cars splashed through puddles in the neon 24/7 grocery sign buzzed weakly in the storm. Inside the dim glow of the parking lot, 3 Harleys rumbled to a stop, black, chrome, and thunder. Reaper, Ghost, Tank. The 3 Hells Angels stepped off their bikes like shadows carved from storms. Their leather vests soaked instantly, rain dripping off patches, boots, and beards. They had only stopped for water, snacks, and to stretch their backs after a long ride. But fate was waiting for them. Reaper was the first to notice him in a small shape, too small, sitting on the wet concrete near the store entrance. Just a little boy, drenched, hugging his knees, shaking badly. Reaper frowned. Kids didn't sit outside in a storm like this unless something was very, very wrong. He motioned for Ghost and Tank to hold back and walked up slowly. The boy didn't look up at first. His black hair was soaked, sticking to his forehead. His hands were trembling so badly that water dripped off him like broken rhythm. Reaper crouched down. "Hey," he said softly, voice deep but gentle. "You okay, kid?" That's when the boy's head snapped up, and Reaper felt a punch of emotion he didn't expect. The kid wasn't scared of Reaper. He was terrified of something else. His lips trembled. His eyes were swollen from crying. And then he whispered, "P, please help me." Reaper's chest tightened. "Tell me what's going on." But the boy didn't speak. He collapsed against Reaper's vest, grabbing 2 fistfuls of his leather patch. And then with a broken voice, "Please don't let them take my sister." Lightning cracked across the sky. Behind Reaper, Ghost and Tank froze in place. Reaper put one giant hand on the boy's back. "Who's trying to take her?" The boy wiped his face with his sleeve, voice shaking uncontrollably. They took her inside that van," he pointed with a trembling hand toward a dark blue van parked near the far end of the lot. "And they said if I followed them or shouted, they'd hurt her." Reaper's jaw clenched so hard the muscles rippled under his beard. Ghost stepped forward. "Kid, what's your name?" "Aiden," he whispered. "And your sister?" "Well, yeah, she's only 8. Tank muttered a curse under his breath. "They took a little girl? In this weather?" At this time, Aiden nodded, crying harder. I ran to call police, but my phone died. I didn't know what to do. I hid, and then I saw your jackets, and then..." Reaper gently grabbed Aiden's shoulders. "You did the right thing coming to us." Aiden looked up at him with terrified, desperate eyes. You won't let them hurt her, right? You'll stop them." Reaper didn't answer with words. He simply stood up to his full height, towering, terrifying, powerful, and his leather vest creaked with purpose. Ghost cracked his knuckles. Tank tightened his gloves. Reaper's eyes locked onto the van like a predator sighting prey. "You have my word," he growled. "Nobody, and I mean nobody, touches a child while the Hells Angels are breathing." The van and the Rain Reaper didn't waste time. The moment Aiden pointed toward the dark blue van sitting under the flickering street lamp, something ancient and dangerous lit inside him. The same thing that made him feared across counties but respected among brothers, a child in danger? That was a line he refused to cross. Everett, he turned his head slightly. Ghost. Tank. Both bikers stepped forward instantly. Ghost, tall, silent, eyes like cold fire, scanned the long, empty parking lot through the sheets of rain. His hand brushed the chain hanging from his belt, a habit he had whenever he sensed trouble. Tank, a mountain of muscle and fury, tightened his jaw. Rain dripped off his shaved head, sliding down the tattoos on his thick neck. Reaper lowered his voice. "Fan out. We approach slow. No sudden moves until we know how many." Ghost nodded. "I'll take left." Tank cracked his knuckles. "I got right." Reaper placed his hand on Aiden's shoulder. "You stay behind me. Understand." Aiden nodded quickly, wiping tears with the back of his trembling hand. Reaper's voice softened for one moment. Only one. "We'll bring your sister back." And then the softness vanished, replaced by the terrifying, ruthless aura of a man ready to face hell itself. High voltage to walk across the parking lot rain pounded everything. The Harleys glistened behind them. Water pooled on cracked asphalt. The neon grocery sign buzzed like a dying heartbeat. Reaper walked forward with Aiden slightly behind him, clutching the biker's vest with trembling fingers. Every step echoed with tension. Ghost slipped into the shadows on the left, moving like a phantom between parked cars. Tank stayed on the right, boots splashing through puddles, shoulders square like a bulldozer ready to charge. Reaper stared at the van, dark blue, tinted windows. Engine off. Slight movement inside, he stopped walking. Something wasn't right that he tapped Aiden gently. "Stay here." The boy nodded, hugging himself. Reaper rolled his shoulders. The rain made his leather vest stick to his muscles, patches gleaming under the weak lamp. His boots sank slightly in the puddles as he stepped closer. Lightning flashed, and in that split second of light, Reaper saw her, a little girl, inside the van, her hands bound, her mouth taped, eyes wide with terror. Yet just 8 years old, a sound escaped her throat, a muffled scream. Reaper froze only for a fraction of a second, and then the beast inside him roared awake. High voltage, the doors burst open before Reaper could make a move. The van side door slammed open with a violent crash. 3 men jumped out, all in black hoodies. One carrying a crowbar, another gripping a knife. The third with a bruised face and wild eyes. The man with the knife shouted into the storm, "Back off, old man!" Reaper didn't even flinch. He cracked his neck slowly, rain cascading down his beard, eyes glowing with fury. Ghost emerged from the left, chain swinging lightly in his hand. Tank stormed from the right, fists clenched like boulders, but the man with the knife wasn't looking at them. He was staring straight at Aiden. "You little rat," he screamed. "I told you not to tell anyone." Aiden stumbled back, terrified. Reaper stepped in front of him instantly, blocking the boy with his own body. His voice dropped to a tone colder than winter. "You took a child." He pointed at them with one massive, rain-soaked hand. "Which one of you wants to explain that?" The man with the crowbar hissed, "Mind your own business, biker. This ain't your—" He didn't finish, because Ghost's chain wrapped around his wrist like a metal snake, yanking him sideways with a scream. Tank grabbed the second guy by the hoodie, lifting him clean off the ground. Reaper stepped forward, face to face with the man holding the knife. "You have exactly 3 seconds, he growled, "to put that down." The man laughed through chattering teeth. "You think you scare me?" Reaper leaned in. Lightning flashed, and Reaper said one sentence that made the man pale. "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to Yendi this." High voltage, the fight breaks out. The man lunged with a knife. Reaper didn't move. He simply tilted his body slightly, letting the blade swipe past him. Then, with a single brutal motion, he grabbed a man's wrist, twisted it, and the knife clattered to the ground. The man screamed. Reaper punched him once, a thunderous, bone-breaking strike that lifted the man off his feet and sent him crashing into the side of the van. Ghost swung his chain, wrapping it around the crowbar guy's ankle, yanking him so hard he slammed into the puddled asphalt. Tank held the third guy by the hoodie, shaking him violently. "You touching kids?" Tank roared. "And no, I." Tank didn't let him finish. A heavy fist sent him collapsing into the mud. The fight was over in seconds. The rain washed blood into thin streams across the parking lot. Ghost stood over the crowbar man. Tank towered above the hoodie guy. Reaper grabbed the unconscious knife man by the collar, dragging him forward like a bag of trash. Aiden watched, frozen, and then Reaper spoke in a voice that made even Ghost look up. "Get the girl?" Saving the rain poured like a waterfall as the 3 Hell's Angels stood over the defeated kidnappers. The storm washed the blood, the dirt, the fear, but it couldn't wash the terror from Aiden's face. Reaper walked straight to the van, not with rage, not with fury, but with a terrifying, controlled silence. Ghost and Tank dragged the unconscious kidnappers together, tying their hand behind their backs with zip ties pulled from Tank's saddlebag. They moved with precision, men who had seen danger many times, but child predators were a different kind of evil. Reaper gripped the van door, The metal groaned. Then SLM, he yanked it open with a force that echoed across the entire parking lot. Inside was a tiny shape, curled into a ball, shaking uncontrollably. Tape across her mouth, ropes around her wrists, knees pulled to her chest. Her hair wet with tears, not rain. The 8 years old, eyes wide with fear. The moment the door opened, she flinched as if expecting another hit. Reaper froze. That hurt him more than any knife ever had. He crouched down slowly, a giant trying to make himself small, and softened his voice to a whisper. Hey, sweetheart, you're safe now. She didn't believe him. Not yet. Her eyes darted past Reaper's shoulder toward the shadows, terrified those men would come back. Reaper turned his head just enough so she could see. All 3 kidnappers were lying in the mud, defeated. Ghost standing watch. Tank cracking his knuckles, looking like a walking wall of justice. Then Leah's gaze jumped again, this time, to the small, trembling figure behind Reaper. Aiden, her brother. Aiden, her muffled voice cried to the tape. Reaper's heart clenched. He reached forward, his huge hands gentle as feathers, and peeled the tape off her mouth. Leah gasped, her breath shaky, her lips trembling, her chest rising fast with panic. She expected pain. She expected yelling. She expected the nightmare to continue. But instead, Reaper stepped aside, and Aiden rushed forward like the storm itself. L.I.A., he screamed. She threw herself into his arms so hard she nearly knocked him over. Both kids collapsed into a puddle, hugging each other like the world was ending. I thought they were going to take you away forever. Aiden cried. I was so scared, Liao whispered. Ghost looked away. Tank swallowed hard. These were men who could shake hands with violence without blinking, but seeing 2 small children hugging the rain, that hit different. Reaper placed a firm, protective hand on both of their backs. You're not alone anymore, he said. You're safe. Nothing is going to happen to you while we're here. The kids held on to him like he was the only solid thing in the world. High voltage of truth comes out when their crying slowed. Reaper spoke gently. Kids, I need you to tell me something. Why were they trying to take your sister? Aiden sniffed. He didn't want to answer, but he forced the words out. They said our mom owed the money. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. They said they'd take Leah until she paid. Reaper's expression changed. Money. Extortion. Kidnapping. Against a struggling family. Ghost clenched his chain so tightly it squeaked between his fists. Tank's jaw flexed with barely controlled fury. Reaper breathed out slowly. Where's your mom now? Aiden hesitated. She's at home. Sick. She can't work since last month. Ya added softly. She didn't do anything wrong. Reaper put a hand on Aiden's shoulder. You listen to me, both of you. His deep voice vibrated with thunder. What those men did, that's not your fault. That's not your mom's fault. That's not anyone's fault except theirs. Leah hugged Aiden tighter. Ghost stepped forward. We're calling the cops. Not letting this slide. But Aiden panicked. No, don't. They said if we tell anyone, more people will come. More bad men. He was shaking again. Fast, hard. His small fingers clutched Reaper's vest as if it were the only thing keeping him alive. Reaper held his shoulders firmly. Aiden, look at me. The boy lifted his teary eyes. You see the men behind me? Reaper asked. Aiden nodded. Do they look scared? Aiden glanced at Ghost and Tank. Ghost stood like a silent storm, chain swinging gently. Tank looked like he could bench press a truck. The boy shook his head. Reaper lowered himself so his forehead almost met Aiden's. And you know why they're not scared? He spoke in a low, calm growl. Because anyone who comes for you comes through us first. Aiden's breath caught. Liao wiped her tears. For the first time that night, they began to believe him. High voltage Reaper makes a decision. Reaper stood up, turning toward the defeated kidnappers. Ghost raised an eyebrow. Tank crossed his arms. They understood without needing words. Reaper took a breath through his nose, slow and deep. When the cops arrive, he growled, I want these men awake enough to confess everything. No lies, no games. Ghost smirked. I can make that happen. Tank rolled his shoulders. Already on it. Reaper turned back to the children. We're taking you home. Liao looked scared again. Our home. It's not far, but it's dark. Reaper lifted her gently, letting her cling to his vest. It won't be dark, he said softly. Not while we're with you. Aiden followed closely, small hand gripping Reaper's leather. And for the first time in hours, the storm didn't seem so scary anymore, because 3 giants walked beside them. Protectors, brothers, Hell's angels. The broken home the rain eased into a soft drizzle as Reaper carried Lily on his arms, her thin fingers gripping his vest with desperate trust. Aiden walked close at his side, trying to match the biker's long stride, still shaking but no longer alone. Ghost and Tank followed behind, dragging the 3 kidnappers toward the store's overhang where police would soon arrive. For now, their priority was the children. Reaper glanced down at Leah. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, resting her cheek on his chest. "You feel safe?" he added. This time her voice was barely a whisper. "With you, yes." Aiden tugged on his vest. Reaper looked down. Can you walk us home?" the boy asked. "Our house is not far, but it's dark and our streetlights don't work." Reaper didn't hesitate. Lead the way. Cloud with rain, walking through the dark streets, the city was quiet. Too quiet. Old buildings stood like tired giants. Puddles reflected broken street lamps. The storm clouds slowly drifted over the rooftops. Ghost and Tank flanked both sides of the children, 2 guardian beasts walking through night. Aiden led them through a narrow alleyway, past an old playground with rusted swings that creaked in the wind. Reaper noticed the way both kids held their breath every time they passed a shadow. They had lived with fear for too long. When they reached a small street of rundown apartments, Aiden stopped. "This is us," he whispered at a 3-story brick building with cracked windows, paint peeling off the walls, and a flickering hallway light that buzzed like a dying insect. Reaper's stomach tightened. Children deserve better. Which floor? Tank asked, second. Aiden replied softly. They walked in. The hallway smelled like old carpet and damp wood. A baby cried somewhere behind a door. A couple argued in another apartment. The building was alive with struggle. Aiden led them to a rusted door with the number 12 faded halfway off. He hesitated. Leah trembled in Reaper's arms. "She doesn't know what happened," Aiden whispered. "I told her to stay inside." When they grabbed Leah, "I didn't know what to do." Reaper knelt and gently placed Leah on her feet. Both kids clung to his leather vest. He rested his hands on their small shoulders. "You did more than most adults would have done," he said. "And now let's go see your mom." Aiden nodded and shakily unlocked the door. High voltage inside the apartment. The door swung open. The apartment lights were dim. A single lamp flickered in the corner. The air smelled like medicine and old food, and on a worn-out couch sat a thin woman wrapped in a blanket. Long black hair tied in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. Coughing into a tissue, she looked up slowly at the sound of the door. First she saw Aiden, then Leah, then the 3 enormous, leather-clad bikers standing behind them. Her eyes widened with terror. What's happening?" Leah rushed into her arms. Aiden followed, hugging her so tightly she winced. "Mama," they tried to take Leah. But... Aiden stuttered through tears. Leah pointed at Reaper. "He saved us." The woman froze. "Hell's angels?" she whispered in disbelief. Reaper stepped forward slowly, raising both hands in a calming gesture. "Ma'am," he said softly, "your kids are safe now." Her lips trembled. What happened?" Ghost stepped beside Reaper. 3 men took your daughter. They've been dealt with. Police are on the way." Tank added with quiet growl, "They won't bother you again." The mother covered her mouth with both hands, trembling. She pulled her kids into her lap, kissing their foreheads, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry. I tried so hard. Reaper interrupted gently but firmly. "Don't blame yourself." Ghost nodded. "You didn't do this." "They did." Tank looked around the apartment. No food, no heat, broken furniture. "How long you been dealing with those guys?" he asked. A fresh wave of tears came. "They loaned us money when I got sick. I couldn't work. I fell behind on payments. They said they'd take something valuable as punishment. I begged them to stop." Her voice cracked. "But they took my baby." Leah hugged her mother tighter. Reaper exhaled slowly. He had seen darkness before. He had seen violence. He had seen pain. But a mother crying over her children, that broke something inside him. High voltage Reaper makes a vow. He crouched down until he was eye level with her. "What's your name?" "Sophia," she whispered. Reaper nodded. "Sophia, look at me." She lifted her teary eyes. "You're not alone." His voice rumbled with calm thunder. "As long as we're here, no one touches your kids again. Ever." Ghost stepped forward, handing her a card. Hell's Angel's emblem. "Emergency contact number. Call any time," he said. "We don't ignore families." Tang placed a small bag of groceries on the table. Things they had planned to buy earlier, now repurposed for a family who needed them more. Sophia began sobbing again, not in fear, not in pain, but in relief. "You don't even know us," she whispered. "Why would you help?" Reaper gave a small, rare smile. "We don't need to know you," he said softly. "We just know right from wrong." Liao reached out and grabbed Reaper's finger with her tiny hand. "Are you angels?" she asked innocently. Tank chuckled. Ghost smirked, but Reaper, he knelt there silently as her small hand squeezed his. "No, sweetheart," he said quietly. "We're just men who don't walk away." Telephone receiver of the police arrived. A loud knock shook the apartment. Ghost peeked through the peephole. "It's them," he said. Reaper stood up and looked at the family. "You tell them everything," he said firmly. "We'll be right outside." Aiden looked panicked. "You won't leave, right?" Reaper rested a heavy hand on the boy's head. "We're not going anywhere." The kids clung to him for one more moment before the bikers stepped outside. Blue and red lights flashed through the broken hallway windows. Tank muttered, "Time to finish this." Ghost nodded. "Let's make sure those men don't see daylight for a long time." Reaper cracked his knuckles slowly. "They took a child," he growled. "We're making sure the cops know exactly who they're dealing with." And with that, the three Hell's Angels walked down the hallway like storms wrapped in leather. The hallway lights flickered as Reaper, Ghost, and Tank walked toward the stairwell. The building trembled under the thunder outside, but the real storm, the one wrapped in leather and fury, was inside the walls. When they reached the lobby, 2 police cars had already arrived. The flashing lights painted the old building in a haze of red and blue. Officers stepped out, hands on their belts. Cautious the moment they saw 3 Hell's Angels approaching point. One officer raised his flashlight. "You boys involved in the disturbance call?" Reaper didn't slow down. He stopped directly in front of the officer, towering, soaked, intimidating, but calm. "Yeah," Reaper answered. "We're the ones who stopped the kidnapping." The officer blinked. "A kidnapping?" Ghost tossed a small metal key. Driver's side of a blue van. Kid was tied up inside. Tank cracked his neck. 3 guys waiting to be picked up. They won't run. The officers exchanged surprised looks. Another cruiser pulled up, lights like lightning bouncing off rain-soaked pavement. "Show us," the senior officer said. Without another word, Tank led them, his boots splashing through puddles outside as they walked back toward the grocery store. High voltage of confession in the rain, the kidnappers were still tied on the ground, groaning. The moment the officers kneeled down to inspect them, the man with the busted nose screamed, "They attacked US! They—" Reaper stepped closer. Towering over him, Ghost's chain clinked. Tank crossed his arms, unimpressed. Reaper growled, "Tell them who you took." The kidnapper hesitated. Reaper leaned lower, his voice vibrating with barely contained rage. "Tell them, or I swear the rain won't be the only thing falling tonight." The kidnapper cracked instantly. Okay. We took the little girl. We were supposed to hold her until their mother paid." The officers stared, stunned. The man continued babbling in fear. "W didn't mean to hurt her," Reaper snarled. "You tied up an 8-year-old in a van during a storm." The officer stood, face grim. "That's enough. You're all under arrest for kidnapping, child endangerment, extortion, and resisting." Cuffs clicked. Sirens roared. The kidnappers were shoved into the back of the cars. Tank muttered, "Good." Ghost smirked. "About time." Reaper stared at the van, fists slowly unclenching. Another child saved. Another nightmare ended. Another family protected. Cloud with rain back upstairs, the apology that broke hearts when the 3 bikers returned to apartment 12. Sophia was sitting with both her children wrapped in blankets beside her. Her eyes were red, but this time from relief, not fear. She stood as they entered. I don't know how to thank you," she said, voice trembling. "If you weren't there tonight, I would have lost both my babies." Reaper raised a hand gently. "No thanks needed," Ghost added with a rare soft tone. "You don't owe us anything." Tank, surprisingly quiet, placed a small paper envelope on the table. What's that? Sophia asked with a frown. Tank shrugged. A little something to help with groceries. Heat. Medicine. She shook her head. No, I can't take money from strangers. Reaper stepped toward her. You're not taking it from strangers. He pointed at Aiden and Leah. You're taking it from the men who showed up for your kids. Sophia covered her mouth again, tears spilling down. Aiden tugged Reaper's vest. Will you ever visit us again? Leah nodded quickly. Please, don't go forever. Ghost looked at Reaper. Tank looked at Reaper, but Reaper didn't answer immediately. He crouched in front of both kids and rested a massive hand on each of their tiny shoulders. You listen to me, he said softly. You too are part of our family now. If you ever need help, food, protection, anything, his voice deepened. You call us. Day or night. We come running. Aiden threw his arms around Reaper's neck. Leah hugged him too, tiny hands gripping the patches on his vest. And for the first time that night, Reaper hugged back. Sunrise the morning after, the viral moment by dawn. The storm had cleared. The Hell's Angels walked the children to school personally. Parents whispered. Teachers stared. Students froze. Aiden held Reaper's hand proudly. Leah held Tank's big finger like a safety rope. A local journalist happened to be there, filming for a community segment. She approached with wide eyes. Are you three the bikers who saved the kidnapped girl last night? Ghost scoffed. Tank scratched his beard. Reaper answered calmly. Yeah, but don't make a big deal out of it. Too late. The kids marched into school like heroes, waving at the bikers, shouting, By Reaper, by Ghost, by Tank. Every parent gasped. Every phone in the playground pointed at the three giant bikers waving back. The journalist video went online within hours. Within 24 hours, it hit 3 million views. Within 48 hours, it went viral worldwide. The headline read, Hell's Angels save little girl from kidnappers. Family calls them real angels. People cried. People clapped. People changed their opinion of bikers. And Aiden's short interview became the most shared clip. I was scared they would take my sister forever. But Reaper held me and said, they'll go through us first. I believed him, and he saved her. It broke the internet. The final goodbye, but not really. That evening, the three bikers returned to their clubhouse. Reaper wiped his Harley. Ghost hung up his chain. Tank ate half a pizza before sitting down. But none of them talked. Not until Reaper finally broke the silence. Those kids, he said. Ghost nodded. Reminded me of my little brother. Tank grunted. Reminded me why we ride. Reaper exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, he said firmly, we're bringing them supplies. Clothes. Food. Whatever they need. Ghost smirked. Tank smiled. Yeah, Tank said. Family. Reaper nodded once. Family. The clubhouse went quiet. Outside, the world still buzzed with their story. People argued, praised, debated, but none of that mattered. What mattered were two kids sleeping safely tonight, and three bikers who would never let darkness touch them again. And that is how a trembling boy crying in a storm, Please don't let them take my sister, led one of the most emotional viral biker stories in the world. Fire if you felt this story. Fire if you love the Hells Angels. Fire if you want more emotional biker stories. Backhand index pointing right subscribe to Bikers Hype. Backhand index pointing right like and share this video with all your friends. Backhand index pointing right help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Prove your love.